When the agency said I'd be heading for hell, they weren't kidding. What they failed to tell me was how beautiful it'd be. I arrived just before midnight. Plane circled above the city a few moments before landing. The buildings glowed in a fiery hue of blue and green. They lit up the entire skyline. I'd never seen anything like it. The city of New Toska was not the kind of place you came to intentionally. You were either assigned here, like me, or you simply ran out of other options. For the majority of the 1.3 million people living here, it was the latter. With all the violent crime, it was not the kind of place you'd want to visit, unless you had specific business here. Very specific. I took a cab to my suite in the heart of the city. It was a 50-story building, and I was on the top floor. The agency had spared no expense. The back wall was made of glass, nearly invisible. I could see the entire city from where I stood. Lovely. Miserable. The floors were black marble, and as I approached the glass in the dark, I wasn't sure where the marble ended and the night sky began. It was an odd feeling, looking down on everything. Like being a god. Far off in the distance, I could see the silhouettes of the Monte Cristo Mountains. Isolated, cold. What was I doing here? My gut always told me how difficult an assignment would be. This one, I thought, might just kill me. I walked to the bar area by the kitchen for a drink. There was nothing a martini couldn't cure, or at least numb for a while. In the morning, things would be clear. I headed over to the office at 6 a.m. It was exactly what you'd expect. A rickety old courthouse with fire exits on every side. It looked slight next to all the other buildings, much older. Someone cracked open the blinds from the second-story window and closed them quickly. Whoever that was, they didn't want to be seen. At least not yet. I walked up to the large front door. It was green. There was a white doorbell on the frame. A small drop of barely visible light radiated from the center. No answer. A clump of pissed-off-looking clouds gathered in the patch of sky right above me, threatening to pour down on my head. I readjusted my hat and decided on a different approach. Luckily, the door was unlocked. Hello? Still no answer. The place didn't look any better from the inside. There were several desks sitting around the room. They didn't seem to be arranged in any particular order. With half-empty cups of coffee, notepads, each desk looked as though the person sitting there had just stepped away and would return at any moment. But I knew that wasn't the case. I walked through a small door, the kind you might have seen in a courtroom from the previous century. It swung behind me, squeaking, which was no surprise. Then I saw her. She walked down a black winding staircase, moving determinedly in a black police uniform, gun strapped to her side. She moved with confidence, optimism that I didn't expect from someone working in a place like this. Her eyes were dark green, kind, terrifying. She approached me with a folder in hand and looked me up and down the way you might if you were studying a new project.
Hello, Mr. Dale. I'm Olivia Shepard, the new Toska Chief of Police.
Pleasure to meet you. But how did you know I was your new detective? I wasn't due here till tomorrow.
Because, Mr. Dale, people don't usually come to us. We go to them. Besides, I've never seen any of our citizens in a fedora before. By the way, you can use that coat rack if you'd like.
Thank you, yes. Where are your officers?
They're off on duty. Or in storage. We don't have a lot of people signing up for this job. We make do with what we have. Come follow me. I'll show you our first assignment.
She walked me over to one of the desks, pushed a pile of paperwork aside, and sat down. I took the chair next to her. She pulled the metal chain of a green lamp, switching it on. The bulb was dull and it didn't give off much light. She opened the folder in her hand and shoved it under the beam.
Getting this case wasn't easy. The people from this place are especially reclusive. They were pretty desperate, and you'll see why. The woman in this picture was the first victim.
Victim of what?
We don't know exactly. It seems as though some people are changing.
Changing?
In a manner of speaking. The woman's name is Ellen Dancy. She was caught outside during a snowstorm last week. All of these cases occurred shortly after a snowstorm, and then she went missing for several days. When she finally came home, she was different. Catatonic for the most part.
Shocked, maybe.
No, not exactly. She doesn't seem to recognize anyone in her family, not even her children. And the Dancy's family reports that she's been exhibiting unusual speech patterns.
What kind of speech patterns?
She's stringing words together that don't make any sense.
Do you have any psych results for her?
Yes. Both hers and her family's. There was no history of serious mental illness. None that would cause these symptoms. Besides, all the victims are exhibiting the same exact behavior, and none of the symptoms correspond with any known mental disorder. This isn't that simple. Something else is going on here. Mr. Dale?
Yeah.
There are 11 other cases just like this.
I'll get my coat.
Where are you going?
We've got to get out there.
Yeah. Okay. But you're going to need a much heavier coat than that. Much, much heavier.
You can't be serious.
These cases aren't happening in the city. That's right, Special Agent. They're happening in the unprotected zone.
At the turn of the 22nd century, the world turned really cold, really fast. As much as we tried to fight it, by that point it was too late. But then, out of a military base in the northwest, an aging physicist and a group of engineers created the first blue cap zone. The blue pods, as many people called them, kept the most dangerous weather at bay. They didn't create their own climate, at least not initially. Rather, they took the edge off the existing one, neutralizing sub-zero temperatures. Later, the pods manufactured their own atmospheres, mimicking weather patterns from the past. They worked by harnessing heat from the Earth, forming a protective layer around urban areas. The process of absorbing heat from the ground released small amounts of argon into the atmosphere, creating a barely visible blue sheen around each city. That gave the pods their name. Agents often referred to anything under a blue pod as a protected zone, because outside of these areas, the world was an icebox. It was extremely rare for people to live outside of these protected areas, but it wasn't unheard of. Usually, people out there were too poor to live in the cities, or they were disillusioned with the coalition government and preferred taking their chances out there. These communities distrusted anything resembling authority and wanted to make a home for themselves in another part of the world. Unfortunately for them, coalition was the world. So, there was nowhere for them to go. Nowhere except the cold.
You okay? I should have warned you the mountain goes up to 12,000 feet.
Height is fine. Icy cliff, not so much.
Well, you better hang on, Agent Dell. We've got some sharp switchbacks up ahead.
You do this a lot?
Only a few times. Drones glitch in this weather. Folks out there have their own way of dealing with crises, but every once in a while, they'll radio for help. Just never for anything like this.
We reached the Dancy's home at 9, an old cabin that peeked from underneath the relentless snow. When we got there, it was 70 below.
What's this for?
That's your mask. It has a built-in intercom. Put it on. It'll keep your facial tissue from dying.
You're kidding, right, Shepard? Shepard, how do you put this thing on?
It was an odd sensation. The agency never required us to leave the protected zones. It was hard to imagine that anyone could live out here.
Dale, it's best we don't say you're with the Central Bureau of Investigation. We're trying to earn these people's trust and...
I get it.
Hi, I'm Olivia Shepard, the new Toska Chief of Police.
Please come in. I can take your masks and coats if you like.
Yes, thank you.
Can I offer you some water?
I'm good.
No, thank you.
This is my father. He was a fighter in the war.
It's an honor.
We really do appreciate you coming out here.
Of course. And as Chief Shepherd said, we are truly honored.
Well, it didn't do much good, did it? That's how it goes, I guess. Would you all like to meet Ellen?
Yes.
Well, follow me.
Mom, these people are here to help you. Mama, can you give them your attention? They want to help you.
She was a slight woman with dark blonde hair and fair skin. She wore a flowered nightgown. A young boy, about 4, clung to her legs as she sat on a wooden chair. She was lovely. The only problem was that she wasn't in the room with us. Her gaze was fixed on the wall, or past it. Mrs. Dancy, can you hear us? My name is Officer Dale.
She does that from time to time. Here, let me wipe the spit off her lips.
Ellen.
She keeps staring at that wall. There's nothing there, Ma.
Wait. No. She's not staring at the wall. It's not the wall she's looking at. In fact, I don't think she's looking at anything at all. She's not looking. She's listening.
Mommy's listening?
Where are you going, Mom?
Ellen, can you see me? It's me. It's me. Oh, she's headed toward the basement. Turn on the light so she won't fall.
What is she doing with the radio?
Ellen, can you hear me?
Why is she listening for static? That doesn't make any sense.
I think for her it does.
Come on, get Matthew out of here, Diane.
Come on, baby.
Ellen, what are you listening for? We're going to get you help, Ellen. Don't worry. I recommend you keep a close eye on her. There's something we have to check out.
But what about my wife?
We'll be back. She'll be all right. We're going to figure this out. Who's next?
Jamie and Alan Miller, 2 11-year-old boys.
Kids, too?
I'm afraid so. They're not far from here. We just head west for a quarter of a mile. Dale, why did you say that back there?
Say what?
Why did you tell Mr. Dancy that we would figure this out?
So that we'd have to. Someone must have let Mrs. Miller know that we were on our way. When we arrived at their home, she didn't wait for us to knock. She opened the door and let us in immediately. She was wringing a handkerchief in her hands.
Thank you so much for coming. Our boys are so sick. They won't speak or eat, and we don't know what to do. They just sit in front of the television set watching channels that don't work. We have a small generator, not like the ones that light your city. We just get a few programs from you all, but they only watch the broken ones. They'll sit in front of the television all day and night, day after day.
Let me try something.
Dale, what are you doing?
I want to see what happens when I turn the set off.
Oh my goodness. They're walking over to the television and turning it back on.
Thank you very much, Miss Miller. We've seen all we need to for now. Don't worry. We'll be back with answers for you.
What the hell's going on, Dale?
Those kids in there, Mrs. Dancy, all the victims. I know what's happening.
Well, would you enlighten me?
They're waiting for a signal.
A what?
They're not acting this way because of some random phenomenon. This is not some thing. It's someone. It's a person.
What makes you so sure?
I mean, I'm not. At least not entirely. That's why we need to be here when the next snowstorm hits.
You're kidding me, Agent.
No, I'm not. That's what we have to do.
Tonight.
What?
Tonight. The snowstorm hits tonight. Thanks for letting us stay here, Mr. Price.
Oh, no problem. No one was using this cabin anyway. My neighbor just up and left, out there into the cold. Huh. He left his coat and his shoes behind. That happens sometimes. Some people say it only happens to the fragile ones. But I don't know, leaving just like that. Seems like it takes a whole lot of courage to me.
So you really expect to find somebody out there?
If the attacks are happening during snowstorms, tonight's as good a night as any.
You're a little cracked, you know that?
Maybe. But I'm not the one in charge of protecting people in the largest crime district.
You are now.
Yes, I guess I am now.
Well, you best saddle up and drink plenty of that coffee. We could be here for a couple of days. And I don't care how fancy these binoculars are. They're not going to do us any good if we fall asleep.
Yeah, you're right about that. You are right about that.
Snow's really coming down now. Want some more coffee?
I'm okay.
We could end up in a whiteout situation, Dale. How do we expect to spot anyone in those conditions?
A person like that will make themselves known.
I wish I had your confidence. The snow is several feet deep now. Do you see that? How can anyone survive in that?
Back in the early days of the Bureau, my grandfather was an agent. One of his first assignments, he had to track down a killer. This man was targeting people that lived by an oil refinery near a port, back when they had oil refineries. For 2 days, they combed the area, but it was difficult because there were lightning storms every night that week. Still, kept searching. Nothing came up. They just couldn't find this guy. He was so elusive. Until this one day, when an oil worker accidentally slipped into a vat. They had to drain the oil to get him out of there, only he wasn't alone. Next to him, the bottom of the drum, was their man. He'd been hiding there the whole time. No one could understand how he'd managed to stay alive in there for so long. Turns out, he was propping himself up with these circular ridges in the drum. The grooves were just deep enough for his fingertips. Must have been exhausted holding himself up like that. Many of my own cases have stunned me also. But nothing really surprises me about human behavior anymore. If someone's determined to do something, they'll do it.
Sounds like you've seen a lot.
No more than you.
Nope. No more than me. The drones take the easier jobs, so I'm always on the bigger cases. I don't mind violence. I see it every day. It's the deranged perpetrators. the ones that play guessing games that get to me. There was this one guy that made explosives. He'd leave extra pieces of shrapnel in them, like screws or metal plates that really didn't belong. I knew they were messages. So I followed them all the way down the rabbit hole. And when I arrived, there he was, waiting with a gun pointed straight at me. He didn't say anything. No negotiating, no speech. He just fired. Thought I was dead, so he ran off, but I wasn't. And 3 days later, I got him. He must have done something to the bullet. I never had a gun penetrate my vest before. Luckily, the vest took most of the blow, but the bullet did go through. I followed his trail for hours with a shattered clavicle.
Wow. That's intense. You see, I'm crazy.
Well, it's all part of the job, you know?
Yeah. Here's to having the worst jobs.
To the worst jobs. Wait, what was that?
What?
Do you see that?
What do you see?
Something's out there. In the snow. A man. Look, he's right there. He's about 40 feet away, but he's looking straight at us.
There's no way. Our lights are off.
Dale, he's staring right at us, right through the window.
That's him!
Dale!
Don't miss the conclusion of Part 1, The Snowdrifter. Follow and subscribe to the podcast at argonpod.com. Argon, an Ambermane media production, is written and directed by Jeannie Floyd. Vocal cast for this episode includes Les Weiler, Blanca Gomez, Robert Salas, Sarah DeSoto, Abbey Guerra, Jeannie Floyd, and Asher Wagh. Editing by Mike Moody Garcia. Learn more and follow the podcast at argonpod.com.